Well, it is going to be a little harder than usual, Larry Goldberg, co-host of Good News Monday, to find really good news today, but I'm sure we can find a way somehow to produce some good news. We had the stock down today, and it was down more than the markets and down more than the Mag 7 and kind of down more than anybody else out there. We'll talk about a couple of possibilities on that, but just in general, how you doing, Larry?
I'm doing great. I had a good day.
Oh,
Good.
there you go. That's all we need to say. I had a good day too. Very, very good day. All right, let's see if we can get into the first subject here, though. Um, right now, a lot of folks are talking about Elon's compensation plan, the possibility of moving the corporation, the governance issues that were raised by the Chancellery Court in Delaware. I'd like to take the story just a little bit broader. Have you thought about if you were, president of the entire world for the day and you could make any choices you wanted to make? Have you ever thought about what choices now, I want to, before I say this, I want to say, I'm not I'm not saying that we should start a crusade like some others have done, but rather in general, though, if you had control of the board or you could make decisions about who would be on the board or who would be on the executive team at Tesla, and I'm asking this based on your years of experience on boards and also seeing different teams in different larger companies. So do you have thoughts about whether we should have a strong COO, a major VP of marketing or something like that? Would you have a stated succession plan, or at least state that there is a succession plan, even if they don't name the person? Or would you add two or more board members who are clearly independent? What thoughts have you had about that kind of stuff?
It's a very good question. You know, we have, I think, a generational opportunity at Tesla. I think back to the time of Edison and J.P. Morgan, the man, not the company, but John Pierpont Morgan, supporting Edison and what he did for Edison, and what came out of what he did for Edison in terms of, multiple different companies, multiple different technologies. And, when we think about the period 1890 to 1930, it was an extraordinary period of growth for the United States. And J.P. Morgan, again, the man, was such a catalyst in that period because, he funded so many critical technologies and people. That was a period of enormous creativity, industrial and economic activity for the United States. It didn't necessarily end well in the 30s, but that's a whole nother story. But if we think about Elon in the context of an Edison, or the context even of a Newton, I know some people will laugh at that, but that's how I think about Elon. Then we really want to think about enabling him rather than controlling him.
Mm-hmm.
This notion of controlling him, this is a modern day concept. This is a concept that professors have conjured up. Professors of law have conjured up to minimize risk and maximize, let's say minimize risk and minimize creativity in the corporate environment. So I have some priors here that some people would not be comfortable with, but I'm not comfortable with a structure that would, quote, control, unquote, Elon.
Hmm.
Elon's creativity his vision, his ability to to uncover the opportunity out of the innovations, out of the discoveries and innovations arising out of his work are, I think, unequaled.
Right.
You know, he has constantly uncovered the next and the next and the next, as he has extraordinarily efficiently pursued the current. So he has this extraordinary combination of running companies in an extremely economic and controlled way, but at the same time uncovering the opportunities arising from, you know, his first principles thinking in terms of the physics of it all.
Right.
It is unclear to me that a conventional governance construct, such as envisioned by the honorable judge of the Delaware court, would thrive under those circumstances. Now, the problem is, you know, that public company practice and law, as it's evolved, and it hasn't evolved that well in my judgment, but as it's evolved, is inimical to all of this, to creativity. It thrives on suppressing creativity. I've experienced this myself. It thrives on, you know, predictability, which by definition is the opposite of creativity. And so if we try and, you know, embody this governance structure around Elon, we definitely will not achieve the level of creativity that you and I may be interested in. Now, it may be different for, you know, institutions, and you know, Elon recognized this back in 2018 when he wanted to take the company public. And there were too many complications, and you know, he was vexed at trying to achieve that. But if I were to judge on what I would want by way of board control and so on and so forth, I wouldn't perturb what has been so successful in the past 5 years or 6 years. It's been phenomenally successful. Now, the stock price may be down, and you know, everybody's at Twitter about that, if I can use that word.
Yes.
And everybody's, you know, upset about that. But we're looking at an incredible 2025, an incredible 2026. We have got so many things, you know, in the pipeline, and you know, there may be 25, maybe 26, maybe 20, but an incredible growth period. We have, you know, the Cybertruck, which is an extraordinary product being launched. We have next gen sometime in the next year and a half or so coming out with a lot of promise. We have all the infrastructure for the semi, for the 680, for the energy business. All of that is in place and, you know, under evolution. And everybody wants it to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to happen. And this board has been phenomenally successful in making that happen. Why are we even questioning it? So I understand your question. I understand what is motivating your question. But my answer as an investor is, guys, when somebody is succeeding so phenomenally, do not disturb him. You know, I was really upset to hear Leo Kogwan criticize, or read today that he criticized Elon. I was there when Leo made those investments. I was on, you know, private DMs with him, and he was expressing all this confidence. in those days, knowing who the board was, knowing what Elon was going to be paid, all of that stuff, as we all were. By the way, all of us knew. All of us understood. All of us. And so, okay, he may, he may have problems in terms of, debt and so on and so forth. I understand that. I get that. I sympathize with him. Anybody who gets into debt shouldn't be sympathized with, but there you go. It's, debt to buy stock is greed. Underlying that is greed, because if you buy stock on the basis of your concept of the future. When you add debt to buy stock, you do it because you want to make even more. That is a function of, greed or desire to improve. Anyway, bottom line is, I say, Elon, stay the course. I say, board, stay the course. Board, I have the highest regard for what you've done. I think you've done great. I hope this answer answers your question, because I know that it's not exactly a change of course.
No, it doesn't have to be a change of course. That's why I asked the question. I'm looking for what you think. So that's half of the question. What about the other half, which is leadership? Elon has been clever enough and smart enough, actually said the words out loud, that he doesn't like being CEO. He hired over at X a person to run a big piece of it. He's hired at SpaceX a person to run a huge piece of it. He has people running the Neuralink company, etc. So,
he has functionally a lead operations person at every company he has, other than Tesla. I'm not aware of who he has actually, quote, running, unquote, XAI. It could be that he is taking that role himself. And, I think Tesla is a special case in his firmament, because Tesla has had several people run, the company. He had the CEO at first that the board had to fire because the guy was basically lying to them. And then he brought in, this young man from Israel who didn't quite meet the parameters that he needed. And then he took over the role himself. I think that he probably himself recognizes it's time to have somebody do that, but it's very, very difficult. I think in a way, Zach leaving when he did may be pointing to the fact that, we all thought that Zach was the man. At least I did.
And he did, yes.
And it was disappointing to me that Zach did leave. I don't know all, obviously I have no insight into what happened, but I think it would be helpful for Elon, for a chief operating officer to help him execute. Now, he's got some incredibly strong people. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was blown away at the Investor Day by the quality and strength of the team. Blown away. I had no clue how deep the bench was and how strong the operators were. And unfortunately, he's lost one or two people from that bench, not only Zach, but, one or two others. But I think, Tesla has got such a lot of moving parts that they functionally have got kind of a COO of each of those parts. Whether there has to be a Shotwell over them all, if he could find a Shotwell. Gwen Shotwell is amazing. I mean, she is amazing. When you think about the operations of that company, I don't think people understand how many different components there are of that company. But there are almost as many components of SpaceX as there are of Tesla. I may be exaggerating slightly, but Tesla may be
It's significant.
more.
Significant.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
manufacturing business is a space business. It is a satellite business. It's a communications business. I mean, and that's just to begin with.
Yeah, but within the space business, there's a launch business. And then there's this whole Mars business. I mean, this,
Yeah.
you cannot just say that, this next generation of rockets is just another rocket development. It is gigantic. I mean, it is
Step change.
stunning, The Starship itself is a rocket, but then you've got this whole NASA contract,
Right.
which is, it is very complicated. And then, I mean, and then, Starlink is itself, going gangbusters, but it's a complicated business with huge international, contracts and operations. And Gwen just seems to
Handle it.
well, she's got some, she's hired some very good people, and there's some very good people from long time standing. So you'd think that, it is clear that Elon has the means to add that sort of person, but I would prefer them to advertise. I would prefer them to be more market oriented, more marketing oriented. I don't disagree with Gary Black on this issue. I don't know where you stand on it, but that's how I don't trust my judgment any more than I trust Elon's judgment on this subject.
Yeah. From a marketing standpoint, I don't know that I have more experience than Gary. I have a broader experience than Gary, and for sure. And last year, when the question first arose, basically in January of last year, when the price cutting started, I was against it, and then I was for it. After I thought it through, I realized that there was a cost-cutting situation that potentially could add more TAM, and that would be more important in the short term. I now believe that he's reached as much TAM as he can, unless he proves to me that the TAM that he's reached knows about it. So you might have a whole bunch of people that make between 70,000 a year and 120,000 a year that can now afford the car, but do they understand that there's an opportunity there, and the low cost and the low lease rates, et cetera? I don't think they do. So I think now his reasoning has played out to get the price down to where sticker parity, and even better than sticker parity. Okay, now we got to tell folks.
I'm aligned with you. I mean, you obviously have more experience in the field than I do, but I'm aligned with you. And, I would wish that he would be more aggressive in terms of addressing that piece of the market that is still resistant to EVs because of ignorance.
Right.
We can segment the market by those levels of ignorance of the EV.
Sure.
And I think addressing those segments, there are multiple different methods that we could do. Elon believes that you make a great product and they will come, but he's dealing with gigantic, historical habit.
Yeah.
Gigantic is historical habit that is very deep.
Right.
It shouldn't be gigantic, it's deep, right? It's a habit. So, and I think that information in that environment is very good. Now, information on X is good, but it's a sliver. It's really, it talks about 100 million or 200 million. I mean, that's nothing. It's nothing, in terms of the populations of, that we're trying to address.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I disagree with Elon, and I agree with a lot of, what you're saying and what Gary's saying. But, if I were to balance all of the above, all that I've talked about at great length now, my bias is to invest more into Tesla, given its current governance and its current management.
Yeah. I'm looking at all of this really as marginal improvements.
Yeah.
So I didn't write the book, the Elon Musk method, because I thought that Elon was missing very much in terms of his capabilities. The whole idea of the book was that he's a genius at so many different pieces
Yeah.
of the pie. It's just unbelievable. But I do think, and while I think he's a marketing genius, marketing includes product development, it includes packaging, it includes design, it includes pricing, it includes understanding the market, understanding the
Advertising.
but then it gets to advertising, becomes a section, a piece. Advertising and trade shows and all the things that go around that
And the end sale.
and the end sale.
The end sale, yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure that he understands that part. I'm not sure that he fully has a genius at the sales process, so to speak, of being in front of the customer at the retail level, of making something happen at the retail level that makes sure that you close the deal, those kinds of things. And that's where I'm thinking a marketing person might be the perfect answer. And then for his own sake, he says he calls it his chores is to run the company on a day-to-day basis. Well, so get somebody in to do that. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's gonna be real difficult to find that person that will both be subservient to him, take orders from him, and yet be independent enough, like the others. It's hard.
He was brilliant enough to spot and hire Gwynn.
He has, yeah.
I mean, that was a stroke of genius. And some of the people he's hired at Tesla, I mean, his hiring has been incredible.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's another.
By the way, it wasn't just Gwynn he hired. You take Tom Mueller, you can name 40 names of people he hired personally. I'm sure there were much more, but I know of, 4 dozen, 5 dozen from that, what I read, of whom he hired personally. And I could never have hired those people. In my own field, I was nowhere near as skilled as him at hiring at the top level.
Yeah.
And he did this brilliantly. And look at the people he hired at Tesla.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People of extraordinary skill and capability. Now, he hired a few ones that he moved on, and all of us do.
Yeah.
But
you mentioned a couple of minutes ago ignorance. So I'd like to switch to the subject of ignorance. I want to talk about Dan O'Dowd. So there are people today that are thinking that maybe Dan's little spend on the Super Bowl ads on a regional basis over the weekend could be part of the reason why the stock is down today, that enough investors saw Dan O'Dowd's ad. Either they saw it on Twitter, they saw that, X, they saw it on the Super Bowl if they were regionally in the right place, heard about it, etc., that it might have had an impact. Now we've got Dan O'Dowd getting a letter from NHTSA, from the National Highway Transportation Safety agency, saying that he inappropriately used their logo. And yeah, okay, he did, but the fact they went to the trouble to call him out on it is super interesting. Anyway, what do you think about Dan O'Dowd, round 2 Super Bowl? And is it having any impact? Will it have any impact? Should Elon sue him? What do you think?
yeah, firstly, I don't think Elon's got grounds to sue him.
Okay.
Well, I'm not a legal expert, so what do I know? I don't know. He may have grounds, but who the hell cares? I mean, Do you really believe that those ads had any impact on the share price? I don't. The share price is drifting up and down between these numbers. There's nothing, no news why it went up on Friday, no news why it went down on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, you were surprised on Friday. You were equally surprised today. It was good surprise on Friday, bad surprise on Monday. We're in this period, and we've talked about it very often on this program. We're in this period that we just have to wait to see the evolution of, Cybertruck ramp, the launch of the launch of the
Gen 3.
next gen, the launch of Optimus. We're in an amazing period. This is 2017 all over again. It's the most exciting period that I can remember since 2017.
And maybe the most exciting period of any company, anytime.
Without doubt. And everybody worries about this $5 or that $5 up or that. Guys, get real.
All right. So I'm going to do it again, though, Larry. So I'm not going to let you answer it the same way, though. You can't just throw me to the side because, So I'm just going to ask you if you think that Elon's latest sophomoric meme about Disney could have impacted another sliver of people, another group of people that might just go, oh my gosh, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I do. If I had my druthers, I would have Elon's right arm changed to the chair. I hate those tweets.
Okay.
I hate silly little tweets. I hate memes. I'm a serious guy. Elon's not.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a very serious guy either, but I think that I understand he's 17 years old in many, many aspects of his personality, and those 17-year-old the 17-year-old attitude helps in so many ways. The curiosity is still there. The enthusiasm is still there. The idea that he can do anything that he sets his mind to is still there. Because for most of us, that starts to dwindle over time. Fortunately for a lot of entrepreneurs like you and me, we still have a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of curiosity and a lot of
passion.
A lot of passion. But for a lot of people, by the time that they get to his age, 51, 52, they're sitting at home watching football every day instead of just once a year. So this sophomoric aspect, I'm sure I have some sophomoric things that I do at my ripe old age, but these are just a little cringy. And I think that there's a certain percentage of the investing public as well as the purchasing public that is just turned off by it.
I agree. I've often read some of the negative comments by friends, colleagues.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, should I be worried about this? And then the wheels turn. I think, this means that a lot of people are selling the stock because of the stupid stuff. And the stock, therefore, must be worth a lot more than it is right now. This is a huge opportunity.
Yes.
But quiet, don't tell anybody about this because it's our special, our special edge.
That's right.
Look, nothing's going to change Elon. The Wall Street Journal, they had another article today. In the Wall Street Journal, they used to have opinion pieces on the back page.
Yeah.
I forget what the back page was called, but it was these very, 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 bilious pieces about Elon. And I think, it's just the opinion page. Of course, it's now made its way into the main pages of the Wall Street Journal. And, I think to myself, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is terrible. And then I think to myself, this is my edge. This is my edge. Yes, so I don't know.
If he execute, which he will, when he executes on the things that he's working on.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter. All that stuff will be gone.
No, but it will matter because it'll mean that we'll be able to acquire stock
Now,
over
yes.
time at a lower price than otherwise we would have.
I'm saying it won't matter to the valuation. Oops.
Yeah, then, yeah, you're right. You're right.
So, okay, I want to talk to you about Truflation. They had a big announcement today.
Oh, yeah.
And this is the first time that they have actually predicted the read on the CPI a day in advance. And also, in addition to the fact it was the first time they predicted it coming in 0.4 lower than the street is expecting, which was already way down on headline than last month. So I think it went from 3.4 or 3.5 last month. The street is predicting 2.9, the first time under 3% since the inflation thing started. And they came in at 2.5%.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting that Truflation is going out on this limb. What did you think?
Well, you're right. It is exciting that they are going out on this limb. I think, one can point to the math of it that underpins what they're doing because it's very predictable now. Truflation has clear insight into what their numbers, what their readings are. Truflation has their readings, their readings, which is ahead of where the Fed is reading, and they can project back. So in theory, they would be able to recreate what the Fed is going to come up with tomorrow.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that they may not be, point accurate. They may well be out because this is their first rodeo. And clearly they've done it in test mode up to now. Right. So you think that they get it right, but there's no guarantees. But what is exciting about this is that it could well be a way for us to get an early read on what we think is a late view of a mirror view of what the economy is doing,
right?
And prove to the Fed that this is not the way to run an economy, which we've been saying for years and years, by the way. And we've been saying on this channel here, but I've been saying for years and years. It's a little risky. They may prove to be a little premature. My experience in economics, and I don't pretend to be an economist, but I've been studying economists' numbers for years against actual, experience. It may be a little early to be doing this. I hope they've been back testing it and been testing it in up to now. So I think there'll be a few hesitations before we get it right. But this is a particular point in history where they have to get it right. Well, they should get it right, I should say, because it is so clear.
Yeah. Well, and they've got corporations now paying them for this information, and they're now charging. They're charging more than I want to pay, and I could probably afford it, but their premium membership is not inexpensive to get their next level of information and to get it in produced in ways that might be more effective, even for my channel. So they're now getting paid for this, so people are trusting it. And maybe we know that the Fed chairman has mentioned Truflation as something that he does pay attention to. So we could get to a place where, just like they look at the ADP numbers in addition to the government numbers, they would be looking at the Truflation numbers in addition to the CPI numbers.
But Randy, they have the Truflation numbers.
I'm just saying that it would become a number which they would include as a regular.
But the Fed could create the Truflation numbers, have the Truflation numbers. The Fed have the same sources.
Yes.
The Fed have got more sources than Truflation could ever have.
Right.
Because they get those numbers directly from the banks. They get the numbers directly from, I mean, there is no secret there's no secret source to Truflation. All that Truflation are doing are not waiting, the quarter or the 3 month or the historic delay between the numbers being generated and the numbers being reported.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Fed is functionally saying, we've been using systems that are 50 years, that have been proven for 50 years, and we're going to continue using those systems. Truflation said, idiots, stuff is available online in real time. Why don't we just use that? Here's the number. And the Fed is saying, well, that's not how we've traditionally done it. We've been driving by looking in the rearview mirror for so long that we don't think we should start looking through the windscreen, because that's not how it's been done traditionally.
Well, so now they want to make another change. They believe that the core number is not the right number. Well, I mean, not the right number. I guess that's not the right way to say it. But they believe
the
the
predictive
number are the number that they're now creating, which is not exactly either one.
Yeah.
But they believe that you should be including oil and gas, and natural gas, that these are a huge component of what the consumer is dealing with on a monthly basis, and that food should be included, even though it's volatile, that food prices should be included as well. And so anyway, they're making that case that they're only predicting tomorrow the headline. They are not predicting the core number for tomorrow, because they think that the headline is the one we should be paying attention to.
Well, they have to have a hook, and that's their hook. And, but we have the relevant number, the relevant comparative number that the Fed has anyway.
Right.
I think that at a point in time, the Fed is going to have to call is going to have to produce real-time numbers, and we're going to have to rely upon real-time numbers. And instead of this once a month meeting and once a quarter adjustment, we're just going to have to be a lot more proactive to the economy, because this is silly. This is really silly. It's an inefficient, it makes for inefficient markets.
Well, speaking of silly, see, you keep giving me these great changes to the next subject matter. So for about 30 years, the US government and a lot of the politicians were very, very, very concerned about the size of the companies that were growing up. The AT&Ts, the General Electrics, the Boeings of the world. We seem to have completely, there's 2 or 3 senators or congressmen that maybe from time to time talk about the pharmaceutical companies or whatever being too big and having too much pricing power. But basically, nobody is saying anything at all about the Mag 7. And I got thinking about that over the weekend, talked to my wife about it, who's, she's a university professor, historian, she knows her stuff. And we were talking about whether there maybe should be a lot more attention paid to the Mag 7. Now, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be attention paid to the pharmaceuticals too, but the Mag 7 are basically have the power. Okay, Elon said it the other day, you can't be a player in artificial general intelligence unless you're willing to spend $2 billion a year. So there's a limiting factor right there. So you're pushing out a whole bunch of people that really can't play in the artificial general intelligence space. So we've got these 7 companies and probably a few more that are all racing to get to AGI. Now, Elon trusts himself, and because he says and tells us he's trustworthy, and because he's shown himself to be trustworthy up till now, I tend to trust him. I have no such trust for the other 6 of the Magnificent 7. And I don't necessarily trust Elon 5 years from now or 10 years from now, because we all change. We go through periods of time. We've seen other great leaders like him, other great industrialists who their brain went, their emotions went, whatever, because there's a lot of pressure. He's talked about the pressure, about his depression, etc. So what do you think, Larry? Is it time for somebody somewhere to pay some attention to this and start wondering if we want these 7 companies to get 10 times larger than they are now?
I predict the winner of this battle will be none of the above.
None of the above. Wow.
I think there's a disruption coming, and it's going to come from left field. I don't think we know who it's going to be yet. And it won't be one of the big 7. In history, that's how it's occurred.
Okay, now let's put your caveat aside, just to give us
Yeah,
a
just ignore what I've said. Yeah,
no, no, not ignore it. I like your idea, and I know that this has happened many, many times before, and it could easily happen in something, for instance, in what do you call the computers? The ones that don't use what's the name of that, Larry? I'm sorry, they're on a whole nother level in terms of their compute power. Not random. You'll know it when I say it. All right. So, but I agree with you. There's this possibility it's going to come from left field. If it doesn't, and 3 years from now, we've got these same 7 guys, and they're all, double the size they are now, or some of them are, and some of them are even more, and some are less, but they're all just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, having more and more control, having more and more ability to build moats that keep people out. Should the government, I'm sorry to say it because I don't like the government either, but should the US government be having something to say about how large or how much control or how that control is used? I mean, do we need to do something before we get to 2030? I just did what you did. Before we get to 2029, which is the year that everybody's predicting that artificial general intelligence will happen.
Well, general intelligence won't happen when everybody is predicting it'll happen. I predict. I think you're talking about quantum computing, and
Well, no, that was exactly right.
I think you're talking about, how quantum computing is going to change everything, and that's just an example of how somebody who's not even amongst these 7 may well emerge. It's quite clear to me that we're at an inflection point. I'm not saying anything that anybody would find exciting. Everybody thinks that we're at that inflection point. But what I think which is different to what most people are thinking is I don't think it's going to happen the way we think it's going to happen. In other words, I don't think Microsoft or OpenAI or even Grok or XAI is going to be the fount of this knowledge, of this capability. I think it's going to come from left field. I think it's going to come from some other source. And, whether it's quantum computing, I think that we're missing quite a lot in terms of AI evolution right now. A lot. I think what we're learning about the human brain is not the human brain, but about AI is very exciting, but it's still extraordinarily difficult to trace the reason or the cause or the basis for a particular finding, which, by the way, is true of human findings as well.
Yes.
It's extraordinarily difficult for the human brain to express fairly accurately, the train of thought that leads to a conclusion. And so that a whole discipline has been built around forcing scientists to do this in a very disciplined manner. So I think there's a lot to happen that's got to happen. And, whether it's the hardware, that is to say quantum computing, which I don't think applies as much, but okay, maybe, or whether it's some evolution of the neural network approach. I don't know, but I think there are quite a few breakthroughs have to take place. What I never forget is this a computer scientist who's very highly respected in the community, whose name escapes me at the moment, but he talked about artificial general intelligence being somewhat akin to climbing a mountain. And when you get to the very top of the mountain, you think, oh my God, I've reached the top. You suddenly see, because you're at the top of the mountain, that there's a higher mountain just behind it.
Yeah.
And the problem is we just don't know what the height of the ultimate mountains are and how many peaks there are still to go. And everybody's talking as if we're finally getting to the top of the mountain. I don't think we're even close to it. I honestly, I watched some videos over the weekend about embodied AI and this AI, and this guy's got this AI, and this guy's got. I don't think we're even close. I don't think we're even close.
All right. I remember what tweaked my idea. See, you said that scientists don't understand the process of where we get to our conclusions, but I remember the thing that did stimulate my brain to come up with this concept. And that was when our friend at OpenAI,
Sam
Altman, when Sam Altman says, listen, I want to raise $7 trillion.
Yeah.
I did a whole video on it. It's the idea of it deploying $7 trillion. It's like, whatever.
I have to say, I would have a huge problem in investing $70,000 with that guy. Never mind $7 trillion. There's something about Sam that I just get very uncomfortable. Listen, I was looking at investing in a robotics company this weekend.
Yes.
A fancy robotics company, and I looked at their valuation, and I thought to myself, this feels very like investments, an investment period of the past. This feels like this feels like 2000, it feels like .com. People are going crazy right now.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I'm going to bide my time. I'll miss out on the 100 multiples and 1,000 multiples. I'm good. I'm good.
All right. So I'm putting down in your column that you think it's okay for these companies to just grow, and we got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I think that there's so much room for so many other companies to explode onto the, front stage and eclipse these companies. I think there are plenty of opportunities, and there's plenty of opportunities for these companies to stumble. We've been here before.
Yes, Microsoft wasn't the #1 company just a short while ago.
Do you remember AT&T? Do you remember IBM? I remember them all.
Yes.
General Electric. Oh my God.
Yeah. All right. So we have got Tesla. I'm now going to switch to the current market.
Yeah.
We've got Tesla down a little bit more, 45 cents in the after hours. And let's go in and take a look at what's happening. Of course, the bonds, Larry, I don't know. I just said it this morning, but I'll say it to you. Maybe you've got an opinion. I thought we were past caring about what the bonds were doing. I said that probably to you. And I thought we could start looking at the earnings again and where the economy is headed as opposed to the bond market. But it seems like the bonds are still heavily influencing what people are doing on a day-to-day basis.
Randy, I'm going to give you a little secret.
Yes.
That you can take to your grave with you.
Okay.
Bonds always have an impact on the market.
Yeah, an impact, but I'd like them to have like 10% or 20%, not like 60%. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So what we got is we have, see, and I hit it wrong again. I don't know, Larry. Sometimes my fingers just move faster than my brain. Okay, here we go. We have got the 10-year is down, up about 1 basis point, and pretty much all of the longer term are up that same 1 basis point. And believe it or not, the shorter terms are up more. But we're still on the 10-year, we're still sitting at 1.79. We have not crossed my absolute maximum threshold of 4.2. Any thoughts on the bonds, Larry?
More of the same, not looking great.
It could be a big day for the bonds tomorrow, though. There could be a real run if Truflation is right.
Well, if Truflation is right, then, we have to see the Fed act. So your theory is that that the Truflation is going to come out and the Fed are going to have to talk about
Cutting.
some sort of reduction in the interest rates and the bonds are going to collapse. That's your idea.
The bond yields are going to collapse. The bond market will go
Bond
up.
market, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I think you're a little bit. I think you think that I think your belief that Truflation will have any impact on these old fuddy-duddies won't happen.
Yeah, but if the CPI comes in tomorrow at 2.5 on the headline number, and say 2.9 on the base case, the core inflation. Wouldn't that be well, I've just said actually last night, I think on the show, that probably the Fed still doesn't move, but that's because I can't figure out what the new Fed rule is. They told us what the rule was, and then they threw all the rules out, and they're not paying any attention to their own rules anymore.
I don't think the Fed are going to give a nod to Truflation. I think they'll act as if nothing happened.
Okay, all right. So we've got oil unchanged in the pre-market. It's sitting at 77. We've got natural gas though continuing down. I don't know if you heard this morning show, Larry, but I did a lot of looking up on natural gas. Apparently, what's happened now is that the guys who play natural gas feel like winter is over. They can see far enough into the distance. They can see 2 or 3 weeks out in terms of the weather forecasting. It's going to continue to be a mild winter, and natural gas has gone down, I don't know, 41, 42% now in just a few weeks. So there's tons of natural gas, tons in storage, tons being produced, and the market's just collapsing. We have got the dollar completely flat. We have got gold completely flat. Copper also, it's down 0.04%, but it's basically
But copper has been consistently down over the last month and a half. China is it's potentially in meltdown. China can bring the world economy down very significantly. The US is, clamping down on money supply, maintaining these very high rates. UK has maintained very high rates. Europe is in lockdown. Look, China is in terrible trouble. Terrible, terrible trouble.
Yes.
And when I talk about a recession coming, it's because I have one eye on China. I'm writing a whole piece on China. It's going to publish next week.
Okay.
It's going to say, I was right in 2014. I was just 10 years early. And I was 10 years early because China kept staving off the evil day, and it's made it much worse.
Right.
So copper is telling us, guys, things are really not good.
Yeah.
So it's a replay of Japan in the 80s. China has mismanaged the economy just the way Japan did. There are a lot of reasons for it. China much worse actually than Japan in many respects. And it's going to take China 25, 30, 50 years to recover from this. So yeah, I'm not madly optimistic. And
Okay.
copper's telling us I shouldn't be.
So I'm still at 50-50 on the third quarter, Larry, and you've talked about that you think there's a good chance. But how about using my same method? What percentage chance do you think we're in recession by the third quarter?
100%.
100%. Wow.
By the third quarter?
Yeah.
I have no doubt at all.
Okay.
None at all. My question is whether we'll be in recession by next month.
By next one.
You know, I have a bet with Yaman. I mean, look, functionally, quite a large percentage of the economy is in recession.
Yeah, manufacturing and housing. Yeah.
So there are very few pieces of the economy that are not in recession right now. One of which is, discretionary spending. Discretionary spending has been pretty good.
Yeah.
So the public is buying goods and services.
Right.
I think that grinds to a halt in the within the next quarter.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And then what's left to hold the economy up? China is dying. China's, I won't call it a death rattle because the country's not going to die, but China is going to, just call it I mean, China's in terrible trouble. And Europe's not a whole lot better. So I don't know. I'm not excited about where the economy is right now.
I will look very forward to seeing your China report next week. Do I get a preview?
Yeah, we could, I mean, I know a guy who could help you and
All right. And then we've got Bitcoin, believe it or not, has crashed through 50. It is now at 51.
Does that tell you something?
Yeah, something. I'm not sure what, but I think I know what you think it tells us. People are flying to the Bitcoin for safety.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin is like gold in a way, and Bitcoin is really replacing the gold. So who knows? I mean, all I know is that Kathy called this one right. Good for her.
Yes, and all of her stocks were up today. She had a good day in every regard, I suspect. The pre-market says that the Dow is down 44 or 0.11%. The S&P is down 9 or 0.18%. And the NASDAQ is down 40 or 0.22%. So looking like we could have the makings of a down day tomorrow. But again, you never know. I think when the CPI comes out, everything changes. If it, in fact, is even in line, I think the things will change. But if it beats...
Isn't it amazing that the CPI, we're talking about it crashing downwards, the market going up. I mean, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah. You're right. All right, Larry, listen, I want to let everybody know that earlier today I did a video with Brian White that they should all go take a look at. We kind of went around the whole Tesla world and we looked at a bunch of different things. And I think it was a very fun video. He and I have a lot of fun together laughing. And so take a look at that one. I will put the card right up here.
That's exciting. I'm going to go and watch it.
Okay, all right. And then let's see, what else do I need to say? Oh, people could like and they could subscribe and they could hit the notify button about all the great shows that are coming tomorrow. So Larry, thank you so much as always for bringing in what may or may not have seemed like good news. I don't know, but you know what? We'll call it good news anyway, because it is Good News Monday.
Thanks, Randy.
All right. And to all of you out there, it has been great talking to you.